America leads the world in innovation and global power, but we also produce a special breed of citizens who file the absolute most unhinged complaints on the planet. We have dug through the official archives to find 55 grievances that will make you question the future of our species. We are talking about an elderly lady passing off a live alligator as an emotional support animal, and a reader filing a formal grievance because a biography of Abraham Lincoln contained too many spoilers about the Civil War. This is peak American entitlement at its finest. 1. Florida wildlife is a prehistoric free-for-all, which completely shocked a tourist visiting a state nature reserve. After walking the swamp trails, he marched up to the ranger station to file a furious safety complaint. The man was absolutely appalled that the alligators sunbathing on the riverbank were not tied to trees with heavy leashes. He strongly suggested the state government collar every single wild reptile so tourists could take close-up photos safely. Who in their right mind looks at a dinosaur with 70 teeth and thinks the local park service should walk it like a poodle? 2. Zoos try their best to educate the public, but some visitors just refuse to learn. A furious mother actually demanded to speak to the head zookeeper because the lions were eating raw meat right in front of her children. Her official grievance suggested the staff should cook the beef and serve it on plates so the apex predators would look more civilized. Expecting a pride of wild African cats to practice basic table manners is the kind of delusion you can only find on a family summer vacation. 3. Emergency dispatchers in Ohio were flooded with calls at 3 in the morning, but not for a crime. Dozens of angry citizens were calling 911 to officially complain that a statewide Amber Alert had woken them up. People were screaming at operators, demanding to be removed from the emergency broadcast list because a missing child was interrupting their sleep schedule. It takes a terrifying lack of empathy to view a literal kidnapping as nothing more than a personal inconvenience to your beauty rest. 4. Parenting is undeniably difficult, but dialing the emergency dispatch center is not the solution for household chores. A mother in California actually called 911 requesting a squad car be sent to her address immediately because her 12-year-old son refused to clean his bedroom. She wanted armed police officers to march upstairs and legally intimidate the child into picking up his dirty laundry. The responding officers had to sternly explain that the state penal code does not cover the horrific crime of an unmade bed. 5. Enjoying a picnic on the boardwalk sounds relaxing until the local wildlife gets involved. A furious tourist marched directly to a beach patrol officer to report a grand larceny. The suspect was a random seagull that had swooped down and stolen her turkey sandwich. She did not just want a refund from the deli. She demanded the officer track down the specific bird and issue a citation. Expecting a cop to dust a feather for fingerprints over some stolen lunch meat is peak vacation entitlement. 6. Homeowner associations breed a very specific type of madness. A resident in a quiet Ohio suburb actually filed a formal grievance because her neighbor built a snowman facing her property. She claimed the 3 balls of frozen water were placed in a menacing stance, and the carrot nose was pointing aggressively at her front door. To fix this invisible threat, she demanded the board force the family to physically rotate the snowman 180 degrees so it would look at the street. How miserable does your life have to be to feel psychologically threatened by a temporary ice decoration? 7. Customer service reached a surreal low when a woman at a high-end art gallery filed an official grievance against a classical marble statue. Her issue was not the price or the craftsmanship, but the fact that the statue was way too muscular and was making her husband feel insecure about his own physique. She actually demanded the gallery staff cover the art with a blanket or move it to a private room where her spouse would not feel intimidated by a piece of stone. It takes a monumental amount of jealousy to view a 1,000-year-old masterpiece as a direct threat to your marriage. 8. Buying a historic coastal property sounds romantic until you realize how navigation works. A wealthy couple from New York bought a gorgeous seaside mansion next to an active lighthouse and immediately filed a nuisance lawsuit against the Coast Guard. Their complaint stated the giant rotating beam of light was ruining their evening ambiance and demanded the government turn it off after 8 o'clock at night. Nothing says entitlement quite like asking the federal government to risk sinking cargo ships so you can enjoy a glass of wine in the dark. 9. October brings out the bravest souls, except for the guy who sued a local haunted corn maze for doing its exact job. He sprinted out the emergency exit and filed a police report claiming the teenage actors in zombie makeup were way too terrifying. His official complaint demanded the organizers pay for his dry cleaning because he literally peed his pants in fear. He actually argued they should pause the scares and politely ask for permission before jumping out. Would you ever have the nerve to sue a business for giving you exactly what you paid them to do? 10. City living can be loud, but one resident decided he had enough of the local fire department saving lives. He marched down to the firehouse and filed an official grievance demanding they stop using their sirens when driving past his apartment building. He suggested they just stop at the red lights and wait in traffic like everyone else so he would not have to pause his television shows. Do you think people who file complaints like this actually listen to the words coming out of their own mouths? 11. A suburban dad actually filed a formal complaint with his neighborhood HOA about a resident who rode a Harley. The grievance was not about engine noise, but rather that the big, bearded biker looked way too cool. The dad claimed his own children were looking up to the motorcyclist instead of him, and demanded the man be forced to wear khakis or park his bike a mile away. Can you imagine being so deeply insecure that another man's leather jacket threatens your entire existence as a parent? 12. Dining out turned into a bizarre corporate intervention when a wife demanded the manager fire their waitress immediately. Her official grievance was that the server was simply too attractive, and her husband could not stop staring at her while eating his ribs. The woman insisted the restaurant was intentionally deploying beautiful staff to ruin her marriage and wanted her entire meal comped. It is absolutely wild to blame a 20-year-old college student making minimum wage for your husband having zero self-control. 13. Security at a county fair had to call the police when an elderly woman threw an absolute fit at the entrance gate. She was pushing a live 3-foot alligator in a baby stroller and was furious she was denied entry. She aggressively waved a handwritten note claiming the reptile was her certified emotional support animal. The grandmother threatened a massive discrimination lawsuit, while the gator actively snapped at the ticket vendor. Who on earth looks at a literal apex predator and thinks, yes, this will definitely calm my nerves in a crowd? 14. Paying for the car behind you in a drive-thru is a classic act of kindness, but one guy managed to be deeply offended by it. When he pulled up to the window and was told his coffee was already covered, he filed a formal complaint. He argued the stranger robbed him of his financial independence and made him feel like a charity case. He demanded the staff track down the Good Samaritan so he could give the money back and restore his macho pride. Imagine being so fragile that getting a free cup of morning coffee feels like a vicious personal attack. 15. A local fitness center had to mediate an insane dispute when a guy filed a grievance against another member for lifting weights too aggressively. The complainant stated that the other man's heavy breathing and grunting was ruining his curated workout vibe and making him feel incredibly inadequate. He actually requested the gym implement a strict volume limit on human exertion, or force the heavy lifter to use plastic weights. Some folks genuinely step into a room designed for physical labor and expect a perfectly silent spa. 16. Emergency dispatchers have heard it all, but one man truly believed his delayed dinner was a matter of national security. He called 911 screaming that a local pizza place was holding his pepperoni pie hostage because the delivery driver was 30 minutes late. He demanded the police turn on their sirens, pull the driver over, and escort his dinner to his front porch. The absolute delusion it takes to think a SWAT team needs to be deployed because you are getting slightly hungry on a Friday night is just off the charts. 17. Neighborly disputes reached peak absurdity when a woman called animal control to complain about the golden retriever living next door. Her issue was not barking or biting, but the fact that the dog's owners trained it using Spanish commands. She formally argued that an American dog should only respond to English and that hearing the owners yell commands was unpatriotic and confusing to her own pets. The officer literally had to stand there and explain that dogs do not possess a nationality or a preferred official language. 18. Escaping the noisy city for a quiet rural life sounds idyllic until reality hits. A new resident in a farming community marched into the local sheriff's office to file a noise ordinance violation against a nearby farm. Her deeply serious complaint was that the rooster was crowing at sunrise instead of waiting for a more reasonable hour like 9 in the morning. She strongly demanded the farmer either put a muzzle on the bird or reprogram its biological clock to respect the weekend. Imagine thinking you can legally mandate a snooze button on a piece of livestock. 19. Ice cream parlors on a hot July afternoon are supposed to be a place of pure joy. That did not stop one irate customer from throwing a massive tantrum and demanding a full cash refund from the teenage cashier. The man was furious that his double scoop cone started melting the second he walked out the front doors. He actually accused the shop of selling defective dairy products that could not withstand 90-degree weather. It takes a remarkable lack of brain cells to blame a retail store for the laws of thermodynamics. 20. Suburbia is full of imaginary rules, but one homeowner took it too far by calling the police on a group of 7-year-olds drawing with sidewalk chalk. He told the dispatcher that the pastel rainbows were vandalizing the neighborhood aesthetic and drastically lowering his property value. He actually demanded the cops bring a power washer and arrest the parents for contributing to the delinquency of minors. It is deeply concerning that a grown adult can be driven to absolute madness by a poorly drawn stick figure of a dinosaur. 21. Buying a jigsaw puzzle seems pretty straightforward, right? Well, one extremely confused shopper stormed into a local superstore demanding a full refund because her new purchase was defective. The manager was completely baffled when the woman slammed the box on the counter, furious that the picture was broken into 1,000 tiny pieces. Management had to gently explain the entire concept of a puzzle to a grown adult. How does someone reach their 30s without understanding how a basic board game works? 22. Mexican restaurants are famous for those dramatic, smoking fajita skillets, but one diner found the experience deeply offensive. This guy actually filed a formal grievance with corporate because the sizzling meat was too aggressive and startled him mid-bite. Instead of just ordering a taco, the man demanded the kitchen let the steak completely cool down before bringing it out so it would not make intimidating noises. Imagine being psychologically threatened by a hot plate of onions and beef. 23. Road trips to historic monuments are an American tradition. Yet one family drove all the way to South Dakota only to leave a scathing 1-star review at the Mount Rushmore Visitor Center. Their official complaint stated that the giant stone faces looked exactly like the photos online, which completely ruined the surprise. They genuinely requested their park entrance fee back because the gift shop brochures had spoiled the ending. Have you ever heard of someone getting mad at a mountain for being too accurate? 24. Medical emergencies are terrifying, though one patient managed to be incredibly petty while literally fighting for his life. During a rush to the emergency room for chest pains, this man filed a formal complaint against his paramedics for driving over a pothole. He threatened to sue the city because the bumpy ambulance ride jostled his phone and made him drop it under the stretcher. Getting angry about suspension systems while hooked up to a defibrillator is a truly wild level of misplaced priorities. 25. Living in a gated community comes with rules, but one Texas homeowner association took it to pure insanity. A resident received a massive fine because the shadow of their front yard oak tree was crossing over the property line and darkening the neighbor's driveway for 2 hours a day. The board officially demanded they either chop down the tree or install artificial lighting to cancel out the shade. What is the most unhinged thing a neighbor has ever complained to you about? 26. Leaving a bad review is normal, but one traveler took zero accountability for his own sleep schedule. A businessman submitted a massive claim against a luxury hotel because his mattress was entirely too comfortable. He argued the premium pillows caused him to sleep through his alarm, making him miss a crucial morning flight. Instead of taking the blame, he demanded the hotel reimburse him for the missed airplane ticket. Can you imagine trying to sue a business for being too good at its job? 27. Winter sports require snow, which is naturally freezing. Despite this universal fact of science, a tourist at a luxury Colorado ski resort filed a written complaint that the powder on the mountain was far too cold. This person actually asked the lodge management if they could heat the slopes slightly so her toes would not get chilly while skiing. The concierge had the impossible task of explaining that warming up the ground would instantly melt the entire business model. 28. Going to the cinema to watch an action movie is all about the massive explosions and surround sound. Despite buying a ticket for a war film, one woman stormed out of the theater and demanded to speak to the general manager. She filed a formal grievance stating the on-screen explosions were entirely too loud and the special effects were triggering her anxiety. Her proposed solution was for the projectionist to mute the entire movie and just turn on the subtitles so the audience could read the explosions in silence. 29. Customer service brings out the ultimate entitlement in some shoppers. A guy at a hardware store actually called the corporate hotline to report a cashier simply because the teenager was sitting on a stool while scanning items. The angry customer claimed that seeing a retail worker resting their legs was deeply disrespectful to his shopping experience and demanded the kid be forced to stand for 8 hours. Why do some people feel personally victimized by a stranger trying to avoid back pain? 30. Checking out a mystery novel usually ends with a fun twist, unless you are this specific local reader. A woman stormed back into her town library, slammed a thriller on the circulation desk, and filed a formal complaint against the librarian. Her issue was that the author killed off her favorite character in Chapter 4, and she held the city staff personally responsible for stalking such a depressing book. Blaming a government employee for the plot of a fictional story is just magnificent stupidity. 31. A dedicated vegan actually called the police on a popular neighborhood barbecue joint because the smell of smoked brisket was drifting into her backyard. She filed a formal grievance demanding the restaurant install a giant glass dome over their entire property to contain the odor. Her logic was that the delicious scent of cooking ribs was a targeted psychological assault on her dietary lifestyle. Expecting a local business to bend the laws of wind just so you do not crave meat is a truly staggering level of entitlement. 32. The concept of unlimited food completely broke the brain of a man dining at a casual restaurant. He ordered bottomless fries 30 minutes before closing time and became violently angry when the staff finally locked the doors and asked him to leave. He filed a corporate complaint stating the word bottomless is a binding legal contract that guarantees infinite food for eternity, regardless of business hours. He actually believed the kitchen staff was legally required to stay awake all night, frying potatoes just for him. 33. Living in the suburbs usually means dealing with a few noisy neighbors, but one man in Arizona decided a nearby farm was committing psychological warfare. He filed an official city complaint because a neighbor's goat was bleeding in a way that sounded exactly like a human screaming for help. Instead of being relieved it was just an animal, he demanded the goat be evicted for causing him emotional distress and ruining his afternoon naps. He actually argued the goat was doing it on purpose. If you cannot handle a loud farm animal, why would you move to a house within earshot of a barn? 34. Going to the cinema is supposed to be completely immersive. Yet one angry patron demanded a full refund because the theater turned off the main overhead lights when the film started. She complained to the teenage usher that the darkness made it entirely too difficult for her to knit a sweater while watching the screen. This woman genuinely wanted a room full of 100 paying strangers to sit in glaring fluorescent lighting, just so she could comfortably see her yarn. Have you ever encountered someone this wildly oblivious to the rest of society? 35. Theme parks are built for high-speed thrills, which completely bypass the logic of a furious father at a Florida resort. After riding a massive steel roller coaster, he marched into the guest relations office to file a safety complaint. His grievance was not about a broken seatbelt, but that the ride went way too fast and messed up his expensive hair plugs. He demanded the park operators slow the coaster down to a casual driving speed for all future guests. Imagine trying to enforce a school zone speed limit on a literal thrill ride. 36. Commercial flying is a miracle of modern engineering, yet some passengers remain deeply unimpressed. A man sitting in a window seat pushed the flight attendant call button to register a serious complaint about the altitude. He was incredibly annoyed that the airplane was flying above the clouds, which completely ruined his plan to look at landmarks on the ground. He aggressively demanded the pilot drop down to 1,000 feet so he could easily spot his own house. How do these people manage to navigate busy airports without a full-time chaperone? 37. Online shopping has made us incredibly impatient, but one neighborhood resident took delivery demands to an insane extreme. He filed a formal complaint against a package courier because the delivery truck pulled up right as he was stepping into the shower. He argued the driver should have psychically known his personal hygiene schedule and waited outside in the van for 20 minutes until he was dry. The absolute audacity to think a global logistics network needs to pause operations while you condition. Your hair is just mind-blowing. 38. Retail workers witness the absolute lowest points of humanity. A man walked into a Texas grocery store, slammed a completely clean steak bone on the customer service counter, and demanded a full refund. His official reasoning was that the meat was slightly too chewy, despite the fact that he had clearly eaten the entire thing. When the manager refused to refund a bare skeleton, the guy threatened to call the Better Business Bureau over stolen beef. 39. Museums are designed to preserve natural history, which apparently deeply offended one particular visitor. Standing in front of a massive dinosaur skeleton, a guy filed a guest services complaint because the bones looked way too old and dusty. He seriously suggested the curation team should give the ancient fossils a fresh coat of bright white paint, so they would look more modern and cheerful for the kids. It is genuinely baffling to look at a 60-million-year-old historical artifact and decide it just needs a quick home makeover. 40. Medical professionals deal with some truly bizarre requests, but this dental patient definitely takes the absolute cake. A woman refused to pay her bill and filed a malpractice grievance because her dentist completely numbed her mouth for a major extraction. Her complaint stated that the lack of pain made the expensive procedure feel cheap and completely underwhelming. She actually wanted to feel a little bit of the drilling, so she knew she was getting her money's worth. Have you ever met someone who actively tries to make their own life more painful just to prove a point? 41. Renewable energy is great until it triggers a neighborhood turf war. One suburban homeowner actually filed a civil lawsuit against his neighbor over a roof full of solar panels. The legal grievance was not about how they looked, but a genuine belief that the panels were aggressively sucking up all the local sunlight. This guy claimed the technological theft was the direct reason his own tomato plants were dying in the shade. It takes a truly spectacular misunderstanding of astrophysics to believe the guy next door is actively hoarding the sun. 42. Getting a good night of sleep on vacation is crucial. However, the front desk at a luxury casino hotel was completely bewildered when a guest demanded a full refund for a ruined morning. The complaint was that the "Do Not Disturb" sign he hung on the door was completely defective. Why? Because his own wife walked out of the bathroom and woke him up to ask about breakfast. This man fully expected the hotel security team to magically enforce a piece of cardboard against his own spouse. What is the most ridiculous thing you have ever seen someone blame on a service worker? 43. Calling emergency services is reserved for life or death situations, but a stuck bag of potato chips apparently qualifies in Florida. Dispatchers received a frantic call from a hungry guy treating a broken vending machine like an active hostage negotiation. Requesting a police cruiser be dispatched immediately, he wanted officers to rescue his $1.75 from the metal coil. The caller even threatened to break the glass if SWAT did not arrive to apprehend the snack dispenser. The absolute audacity to involve law enforcement over trapped barbecue chips is just breathtaking. 44. A bad haircut can certainly ruin your week, but one guy in Connecticut decided it was a literal crime. After receiving a fade that was a little too short on the sides, He refused to pay the barber and immediately dialed the police to report a physical assault. He stood in the middle of the salon, demanding the stylist be arrested for destruction of personal property. The responding officers had to explain that while his hairline might be tragic, taking too much off the top does not actually violate the state penal code. 45. Road rage is common, but calling the highway patrol on a teenager learning to drive is an entirely new level of petty. An angry commuter dialed 911 because the driving school sedan in front of him was strictly obeying the posted speed limit. According to his logic, the student was driving far too safely, which constituted a deliberate act of psychological torture during his morning commute. The caller actually wanted a state trooper to pull the kid over and issue a ticket for not breaking the law. 46. Feeding the local wildlife is a classic weekend activity for families. That did not stop one furious park-goer from marching into the city management office to file a harassment claim against a flock of mallard ducks. The man stated that the birds were aggressively panhandling for his bread crusts and creating a hostile recreational environment. To solve this, he demanded the city post official no loitering signs specifically directed at the waterfowl to keep them away from the park benches. Do you think people who try to press criminal charges against pond animals should be allowed to vote? 47. Retail architecture completely ruined the day for one highly sensitive shopper at a major grocery chain. A massive corporate grievance was filed because the man claimed the automatic sliding doors at the entrance were deliberately disrespecting him. According to his statement, the sensors took a half-second too long to open, making him feel like the building itself was judging his right to enter. The irate customer wanted the store to calibrate the glass to fly open the exact moment his foot touched the pavement. It is wild to realize someone out there demands VIP treatment from a motion sensor. 48. Staring at exotic marine life is supposed to be a relaxing educational experience. Instead, a furious mother at a city aquarium demanded a partial refund because the sharks were swimming on the wrong side of the tank. Her formal complaint suggested the marine biologist needed to train the great whites to constantly swim right pressed up against the display glass. She felt the massive predators were being intentionally lazy and hiding from her camera flash. Expecting a terrifying apex predator to perform choreography for your smartphone is a spectacular level of main character syndrome. 49. Summer afternoons are defined by the cheerful music of the neighborhood ice cream truck. Yet, one local dad actually flagged down a police officer to report the driver for a public nuisance violation. The grievance was not the volume, but the fact that the truck only played a short loop of a nursery rhyme instead of the full song. This father demanded the city revoke the vendor license until the truck upgraded its sound system to play complete orchestral tracks. Trying to legally regulate the musical integrity of a popsicle van is just magnificent suburban madness. 50. Checking out a book is a simple transaction, but the Dewey Decimal System completely broke one woman's brain. Slamming a biography of Abraham Lincoln onto the public library counter, this furious reader demanded to speak to the head director. The official complaint stated that the non-fiction book contained too many spoilers about the Civil War, completely ruining the ending. This patron genuinely argued that historical events should be written with more suspense, so the audience does not automatically know who wins. Have you ever encountered a human being who was personally offended by recorded human history? 51. Retail return policies are a courtesy, but a woman at a massive warehouse store treated it like a lifetime warranty on nature. In the second week of January, she dragged a completely dead brown pine tree to the customer service desk. Her formal grievance was that the live Christmas tree simply stopped being alive after a month in her heated living room. She demanded a full cash refund, arguing the holiday plant was legally defective because it did not survive until spring. Imagine having the sheer shamelessness to return a dead piece of wood to a retail worker just to get $40 back. 52. Drive-thru disputes are a staple of American culture, yet one guy in Iowa escalated a condiment shortage into a police standoff. When a teenage cashier asked for 25 cents for an extra packet of barbecue sauce, the driver parked his truck at the window and dialed 911. He reported an active robbery, telling the dispatcher the fast food chain was committing financial extortion. He genuinely expected a patrol car to arrive and forced the high schooler to hand over the sauce. Have you ever been so cheap that you were willing to risk a criminal record over a quarter? 53. A family returning from a luxury vacation in Hawaii submitted a scathing letter to their travel agent demanding financial compensation. Their massive grievance was that the water in the ocean was way too salty and stung their eyes when they swam. They argued the resort should have warned them about the chemical composition of the Pacific Ocean in the vacation brochure. Would you even know how to respond to someone who expects a hotel to desalinate the entire sea just for their afternoon dip? 54. A tourist at Yellowstone National Park actually filed a formal written complaint at the ranger station because the bears were not out playing. They demanded to know why the park staff had not trained the wild animals to perform at designated times for the paying visitors. This person genuinely believed the National Park Service was running a giant, taxpayer-funded zoo and demanded a refund for their gas money. Imagine driving across the entire country and getting furious because a grizzly bear missed its afternoon shift. 55. Waiting in line at the Department of Motor Vehicles is a universal American nightmare, but one guy in Texas decided it was a constitutional crisis. After sitting in a plastic chair for 2 hours to renew his license plates, he called the FBI field office. He tried to file a federal human rights complaint, claiming the slow line was a direct violation of his protection against cruel and unusual punishment. He fully expected federal agents to raid the building and arrest the clerks for processing paperwork too slowly. Is there any place on Earth that tests human sanity more than a local DMV? 55 moments where the American dream collided head-on with pure, unfiltered madness. It is a miracle our legal system has not collapsed under the weight of people trying to sue a plastic snowman for staring or demanding the fire department stop using sirens during a life-saving rescue. Now, I have to know, what is the single dumbest, most brain-melting complaint you have ever heard someone make in real life? Share your most traumatic encounters with entitled strangers in the comments, smash that like button, and subscribe for more madness. See you in the next one.